Against Barcelona, live from the Wanda Metropolitano, there is only 1 point separating Atletico from Barcelona. The race for that top spot in La Liga is really hotting up now. This game is vital, and in today's video, we are going to be breaking down both sides of that story, the two teams coming head to head, what is going to happen, who are the big matchups, and most importantly, who is going to get the nod in both teams. All of that and some more coming right up. Let's get into it. And the first thing before we get into the two teams that you absolutely have to note is about injuries, because both teams are going through some problems right now. In particular, Atletico Madrid have a number of concerns coming into this game from key players in their first team squad. Diego Godin is suffering with an injury. He just suffered that just before the international break started against Athletic Club. Jimenez as well, his defensive colleague, he's out with an injury right now, as is Stefan Savic and Lucas Hernandez. Atletico Madrid right now, coming into this game, they've got serious defensive problems. They're rushing these players back. They're trying to get them fit. Whether they will or not, that remains to be seen. But Koke and Lamar are also injury doubts for this game and currently on the Atletico Madrid injury list. We currently have 3 players definitively ruled out of this game. Vermaelen, Samba, that of course we knew about, but Ivan Rakitic is suspended, remember, for this game, and also is currently on the injury list, whereas Felipe Coutinho is expected to return for this game. He's returned to training and is currently awaiting the medical green light. So without further ado, let's get in to the two teams. And we're going to start here with exactly the same lineup that Atletico Madrid put out against Athletic Club in their last game. That was before the international break. And like I say, even in that game, they had huge defensive problems. Youngster, 19-year-old Francisco Montero, right here, he was actually starting at centre-back alongside Godin, who throughout that game actually picked up an injury. He was going to go off. Atletico Madrid had no subs. He had to carry on, and he eventually scored the winning goal. But after that game, he was diagnosed with an injury, and we don't know if he'll be back. We had Arias here out on the right-hand side, but I think this team is going to have a few changes in it. I think we're going to see Simeone do a few things differently, and like I say, really it is right now anybody's guess which of those Atletico Madrid players will make it back in time from those injury concerns. And I personally think that Atletico Madrid will make 2 changes from that team that came back and won against Athletic. I think Jimenez is going to come in here. They're going to get him to recover alongside Diego Godin. I'm not saying they're going to be 100% fit, but I just think Atletico Madrid, Diego Simeone, they're going to get some players out there. They're going to get them over the line to start the game, and hopefully they'll make the 90 minutes for Atletico. That's what he'll be thinking. Somehow get them to soldier through this, because otherwise they've got no other options. They've got no defensive backup right now, and I think we're going to see Juan Fran here on the right-hand side instead of Arias, simply because Simeone has picked him in all of the big games. The likes of Villarreal away, Real Madrid away, Dortmund at home in the Champions League. Juan Fran has been there over Arias, and I think he's going to start in this game with Felipe Luis at left back. And then you've got Saul, Rodri, Thomas. I think Angel Correa is going to be the sort of wild card here on the right hand side. He's played in a lot of Atletico Madrid's games in the recent times, and I think Simeone is going to go with him again, with Griezmann and Diego Costa, who's also been an injury doubt over the last few weeks, leading the line. But like I say, it's anybody's guess right now. Atletico Madrid have so many concerns. They're trying to get these players back. Whether they will or not, we'll have to wait and see. And now we'll move on to what our lineup was in our last game against Real Betis at the Camp Nou before the international break. And although we would have tried to, we cannot forget what happened in that game. We conceded 4 goals. It was an absolute disaster class, and we lost the game. So the question is, how many of these players in here do you change around? One of them is going to be enforced. Ivan Rakitic, like I say, is going to be suspended. He's also injured. But how many more do you change? Do you make some changes to that defence that made so many mistakes and conceded so many goals against Real Betis? Do you take out Clement Longley, maybe put in Samuel Umtiti for his first start, though, since he's returned from that injury? Do you take out Sergio Roberto, put in Nelson Semedo for a bit more pace there, a bit more solidity perhaps when keeping up with Atletico on the counter-attack? Do you change things going forward? Do you take out Malcolm, perhaps put in Ousmane Dembele, or maybe even the returning Felipe Coutinho, provided that he's 100% fit? All of these questions need to be answered, but for me, this is the team that I would go with. And I would choose to make 3 changes from the team that lost to Real Betis at the Camp Nou, and the reason for that, and the reason it's not more, is because I think we need to shred this team. We don't need to completely tear it to pieces, because for that Betis game, we were playing well, we were doing well as a team, we were playing some good football. We don't need to tear this team apart, but what we do need to do is 3 very important changes, 1 in each part of the pitch. You've got Semedo here in that right back position as part of the defence that I think we need to sort of shake it up a bit. Roberto wasn't good against Betis, and I think Semedo, with all that pace down this right hand side, getting up and down, giving us that energy, we need that in a game like this, and he deserves the opportunity to go out there and prove himself in a game of this magnitude. Arturo Vidal, who I'm going to come on to in a minute, it's really, really important that he starts this game, all that intensity, the aggression to match up to Atletico in that midfield. And then Ousmane Dembele from the front. I'm going to talk about all three of these in a lot more detail in a minute alongside Atletico Madrid. But I think with Dembele, we need to go for it. We need to put him in the team as part of a front three. Dembele, Suarez, Messi. That is brave. That is what we did start to see from Valverde before that Betis game. A bit of bravery, a bit of proactiveness, going out, being on the front foot, taking the game to the opposition. That's what we need to do in this kind of game. And Semedo, Vidal and Dembele would be my picks. And before we do move on to the tactics for with both teams going head to head, I want to talk about Arturo Vidal and the reason I want to see him not only in this team for this game, but if he performs against Atletico in this kind of game, he deserves to stay in that lineup and remain as a starter in this team. Last night, he was coming back from Chile from international break. He wanted to get back as quickly as possible so that he could train and get in this team and prove point to Valverde. Obviously, Rakitic is suspended. He knows this is a big chance for him. He travelled all night coming back from international duty on a plane. He arrived in Madrid because that's the only direct flight that he could get. He couldn't get one straight to Barcelona. He got there at 6 in the morning. He then flew from Madrid to Barcelona. When he arrived then in Barcelona, he went straight to the club to training. After travelling all night, then on another plane to Barcelona, landed there, went to the training ground, got his boots on and went out to train. That is the desire of this man. He said in Sport this morning, I want to start, and believe me, he has to here. And I want to start here by explaining my decision to start Semedo over Sergio Roberto. This is the only thing that really worries me about Roberto. I don't think he's a bad player at all. I think he's a very, very good player. Had a bad day against Betis, but he's not a bad player. But I just think Semedo deserves the opportunity because if Roberto starts, Simeone might do what Real Betis did and really target him down that right-hand side. You might see Saul actually go over to the right-hand side and then Correa come out to this left, our right, and really face up Sergio Roberto here. And what really worries me is they might try and gang up on him. They might really try and pin Sergio Roberto back with the pace of Correa here, and then Felipe Luis on the overlap when he's very, very good in the final third. He's capable of getting forward. That could really hurt us. In a 2-against-1 situation with Correa and Luis here, I think Sergio Roberto is really, really struggling. But I think if you introduce here Nelson Semedo up against Correa and even Luis, if it's a 2-on-1 situation, he's got that pace. He's got that ability to get back in there, cover himself, cover his team, and hopefully then we could avoid those 2-on-1 situations where they overload here and they get in, because if Atletico Madrid get in there, it could be very, very dangerous with us, with the likes of Costa, with the likes of Griezmann getting into the area, getting onto those crosses. And then you look at that front three and the inclusion, I feel, of Ousmane Dembele needs to be done to really give us that edge in attack, because you look at that Atletico Madrid back line there, it's a very, very good defence. Don't get me wrong, Atletico Madrid defensively are one of the best teams, if not the best team in the world, with an outstanding goalkeeper. But Jimenez here and Diego Godin, they're not really going to be fully fit. They're not going to be 100% recovered, and that's if they even play. They could be playing with a lot less experienced players in those roles if those guys aren't recovered. And then look at Felipe Luis and Juan Fran, two extremely good fullbacks over the years, but they are getting on now. They are aging, and you can get at them if you really do target those areas. You've got Messi here on the right, you've got Dembele on the left, Suarez through the middle. We want to be hitting that Atletico Madrid defence with everything that we have. We want to be really going for them, putting as much pressure on those two centre-backs as possible, and really getting at those aging wing-backs. Force them into mistakes. You've got Alba here, who Dembele really can attract in and get him on the overlap. The sort of 2-on-1 situation that we were just talking about Atletico Madrid try and do to us. We've got to do that to them. Get Dembele here, running into those areas, creating that space, drawing in Juan Fran to give Alba that overlap. And exactly the same on the right-hand side. We know that Messi is going to cut inside. Felipe Luis might go with him. And then you've got to get Semedo being brave here, making those runs, advancing. That's what he needs to do in the final third to really put pressure on that Atletico Madrid defence, on those aging legs, on those injured legs perhaps, make them crumble. And now what we absolutely know about Atletico Madrid is they're going to be compact, they're going to be narrow, they're going to be very, very disciplined in whatever situation they play in. They always play in a 4-4-2 formation, very, very structured, trying to keep the gaps between defence, attack, midfield very, very tight indeed to really shut down all of that space and really take command in a defensive situation. But what we know they're going to do, with the likes of Saul here, Rodri is a very, very good player in midfield, Thomas can get forget about the pitch. Correa, like I say, is a bit of a wild card here on the left-hand side. What they will do, though, is get extremely narrow here. Saul will come in, Rodri might drop a bit deeper, Thomas there a little bit more advanced, and then Correa even will come inside a little bit more to tuck in. And what you have to do then is really exploit those wide areas. When Saul is in here, we might not always have control in that midfield because it'll be 3 against 4 sometimes. What we have to do is get the ball wide. Get the ball wide with Alba, who can always expose that kind of space, and Semedo the same. Like I say, he has to be brave. When he sees that open space ahead of him, when he sees there's gaps to run into, you've got to go there. You've got to take that risk. You've got to try and go for it and try and make up that space. That's what Messi has told him to do in the past, and that's what he has to do in these kind of areas. And then it's about really pushing up as a team, forcing Atletico Madrid back, and basically taking away the element of an away game. We want to make it feel as though we're playing at home here. Take completely the control away from Atletico Madrid, force them back, make them be defensive, make them be on the back foot. That's how they like to play at times, but make them do it. Force them to play that kind of game, because then we can start to dictate things. I would personally start Longley ahead of Umtiti, simply because Samuel Umtiti, to throw him back in for the first game after his long injury out against Atletico Madrid away, that is a very tall order. So I think the sensible option would be to start Longley here. But like I say, in those wider areas with Semedo, whether it be Semedo or Roberto and Jordi Alba, when Atletico Madrid get nice and narrow, you've got to exploit that. You have to be brave in those kind of areas. And then you've got Juanfran up against Alba, you've got Luis up against Semedo. And what that creates then, if you do start to play with those 3 attacking players, they have got some severe options here with Messi, Suarez, Dembele. The midfield are going to have to try and help out for Atletico. They're going to try and get back, but these 3 up against those 2 centre-backs, creating the spaces here to move into. That's what you want, to get in behind Atletico Madrid, really exploit those spaces in these kind of gaps between the full-back and the centre-back. Like I say, those tiring legs, as the game goes on, those spaces will appear. Make Atletico Madrid play that defensive game, force them back, take away the home advantage, exploit the wider areas, get at them